A lot of
It's still a
experimenting.
test.
Yeah, a lot of experimenting. How do you feel about it personally and emotionally, but also what are expectations of your organization or clients you're working with? I think companies now are feeling like there's an expectation to utilize AI. It's good as they should be seeing how that could help them, but even to a point of just like making it part of their marketing was so interesting to observe.
Yeah.
Which has been fun because it changes things up and makes you think about things differently.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah.
And it's like evolving pretty quickly too.
Yeah. Before, I think still now people describe it as an intern, right? You still can do things, but you still having to do a lot. But maybe it's starting to, maybe soon AI is going to be promoted to like mid-level. Okay.
Yeah. Slightly scary.
Yeah. Still processing, still observing and seeing other people using it and talking about it.
Yeah. Welcome to Talking Design and Engineering by MAKE.LAB. Insights and advice from industry leaders driving innovation and shaping the future of people, processes, and technology in the world of physical products. Hey everyone, my name is Christina Perla. I am the host of Talking Design and Engineering, and I'm also the co-founder and CEO of MAKE.LAB. Join us today as we dive into another podcast episode. With me today, I have Katie Lim, who is the Senior Industrial Designer at Frog, and also the Chair of Women in Design, New York City. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we met around the same time that Daniela and I met.
Right, yeah. I think we all met at the same time at an event,
So like that panel about a year ago, was it a year ago?
Gosh, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was 1 or 2 years ago.
I know.
It's all fuzzy. But yeah, the Women in Design panel at Frog.
Yeah.
And that's actually what started the entire chapter.
Right, yeah. And that was organized by Vincent Lin, just to give him a little shout out. And it just brought us together. And I think that really started the momentum for the chapter. Right?
Yeah. You moderated, right?
I did, yeah.
You're a really good moderator.
It was easy when you all were so great at just sharing your stories and just running with it. I just got to sit back and enjoy it for the most part, which was really great.
Love it. How does it feel to be on the other seat?
It's okay. And what did I back and forth? And, I don't know, it's fine. Just still conversation.
Yeah, awesome. So prior to Frog, you were a designer or you were a director at Bark, right?
Yeah. I went through a lot of roles there. I was there for 5 years, and so I grew a lot. So I went from mid-level designer to senior to director. So I had a lot of different hats.
So like, how did you, like, that's an incredible career journey and so fun too. Like, toys, pet toys, dog toy. Well, dog or overall pet?
We focus on dog, yeah.
Okay, so dog toys, want to make sure I got it right. Mm-hmm. And then now these really transformative consumer products, right?
Yeah.
How did you get here? How did you start? Take me back to like when you decided ID was for you.
Wow, yeah, okay. We're going way back. Yeah, so I know that's always a great question. How did you get into industrial design? And for me, growing up, I was really I knew I was an art kid, right? No, only as far as that much within your school subjects. So I was like, okay, I like art, I like creative stuff, I like math. And then in high school, I was starting to get really interested in sculpture, and I was really interested in interior design at first, actually.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, that was the time of Trading Spaces and that sort of home decor kind of reality show. Yeah,
really
this
took
is
off.
pretty cool, and then also some of this could be done better. But yeah, and then I started to understand IKEA. I was like, oh, everyone has IKEA. I don't know if I want to do interior design. And I was looking at architecture. But yeah, so I was still exploring different aspects of just my interests. And then I actually had an uncle gift me a book for interior design about urban spaces. And then I was really starting to think about my dream home, right? I just had such imagination with this book for some reason. And I really wanted to share this vision with my family. So the only way to do that was to sketch it out. So I was sketching out like blueprints and all these rooms and like perspective drawings of this home I was so excited about. And then even using this book to reference different like furniture pieces and details of the home. Like this is the staircase and just call outs, right? And then when the book didn't have the right type of pieces I was imagining, I was like designing furniture in a way. And I didn't even realize at the time that's technically industrial design, but I was starting to do that. Yeah, it wasn't until I was starting to do the whole like college application thing and doing those personality tests that industrial design came up as this could be a good fit for you. And I had no idea what it was, but when I read it, it was like the perfect marriage of architecture, interior design, sculpture. I mentioned I was like really interested in high school, so I think I just already knew at the moment just this is the field I want to be in. I didn't know exactly like within like industrial design what I wanted to do, but I knew this is what I wanted to study.
That's so cool.
So that was
all from a book.
All from a book, yeah. And I don't know, I should tell I don't even know if I've shared this with my uncle fully. Like, I was like, I don't know how, if you realize how much this book like, impacted my life.
This. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was great. But yeah, anyways, and then from there, I went to SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, and did the whole foundation courses, and then started to explore that. And it's interesting, you don't really, when I was thinking about this a little bit more in college, you start to, within industrial design, you start to realize your strengths or your superpowers in a way. Sometimes they find you or you find them. And that's when I was starting to discover my personality and aesthetic for toy design that really went well, because we had some class opportunities to do sponsored classes with toy companies. So that's how I got.
That's so fun.
That was my introduction, yeah. And then just to sketching and doodling, and started to get into the character work. And
which is so good, by the way. Like, I love your Instagram page. I love it.
Yeah. And some of that didn't come till like more so after I was starting to get more into character design post-college,
cool.
just from just other designers and sharing their passions and stuff. So just getting more exposure. But yeah.
So cool. And so what was your first job after college then?
So that sponsored class that I got exposure to toy design through, that company ended up bringing me on right after I graduated. I started as an intern. And
That's
then
so
went to a
cool.
job. Yeah, and that was such, again, when I was thinking about it this morning, just they were such a great, I couldn't have asked for a better like first job experience. Because I had a good friend that had joined their team, and just my boss, Brad Reese at the time, was the director, they really looked out for new designers and new things, just knew how to bring them in, what I didn't know, and they were really great at looking over your shoulder and like a good balance, so they could help call out things to consider, but also giving me the space to explore.
Nice.
And yeah, it was really great, and then everyone just sharing and having a lot of fun. It was just really really good culture and community within the team.
That's an amazing first job.
Yeah,
like,
it was really cool.
That's like the dream scenario, I feel like.
yeah. Everyone was so great. Just that openness of sharing, and then that made me comfortable to loosen up, because it's very intimidating, that first job. And then it helped me understand how I can start having my own opinions, and how to, what's interesting with at least toy design there is that sometimes you work with very strict style guides, so there's characters and color palettes you really have to stick to, but you start to learn how you can still use your imagination or integrate those characters in ways that still feel very you, or are just really unique and different, instead of just being super literal with you got a turtle and it has to be like this with the shell with buttons. But maybe there's new ways to abstract, and that I started to learn that or exercise that more as I got into characters and forms, to like a little more of a I know we'll talk about that a little more later, but yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
That's so fun. You touched on a few things that I think are really important to learn, but I feel like it's the biggest shock coming out of ID and a design program is like learning how and when and where you can advocate for your own opinions and like designs.
Yeah.
And you know, at least at Pratt, we learned so much of the doing, right? We learned how to make things. We learned how to use tools. We learned how to sketch. We learned how to concept. But in reality, when you get a job, that there's so much more to it. There's so much like of the corporate world learnings that aren't really introduced in school. And so it's all this to say, it's really cool that you had a really safe and like comforting environment to grow and learn that stuff.
Yeah,
it's
and
incredible.
then realize there's these things like, oh gosh, I didn't know to expect this, and just I think just working somewhere full time, and I know sometimes that's suited for people better than some people better than others. I think we chatted about this a little bit before, of just like how do you grapple with like when you have to go through layoffs, or like how to advocate for yourself for promotions and those types of conversations. Just some of the life aspects that you typically experience too on the side of design is like I guess you just have to learn as you go and take it. But
for sure. And so after that you went to Bark?
I was at Kids 2 for 4 years, and I really wanted to live in New York City. I had a good living situation with a friend that I was able to just move up without a job, and then I ended up at Pollen Design, and they were a really small consultancy that had a kitchen brand called Prepara. So they were that space competing with OXO and just the Target retailers, Walmart, all those things. So doing a lot of kitchen accessories. I did some packaging design there, learned how to do some product photography, prototyping. So they're super small team, but that's where I just learned the other side of things versus big company, and then just learning how to be really scrappy.
Very important in this world.
Important, yeah. And I didn't only work on kitchen stuff. We partnered with Jane West to develop a cannabis accessory line, which was also very like
when
interesting.
was this?
It would be 2016. So she was starting her brand, and that was cool because at that time the cannabis industry was very much that kind of one note of that like Bob Marley vibe. And so she was really at the forefront of defining what is this new culture or lifestyle that it could be through product and targeting women for how they could really be more empowered through these products. So that was really cool to get to do that. And also being a woman in design, it's like, oh, this is a point of view that's really valuable and I can really embrace and bring to this. But yeah, it was interesting. I do remember when I was interviewing, they asked if I was comfortable with cannabis, and I was like, what's cannabis? So I was like, great, she's perfect. So that's how, so that's what I brought on. But yeah, so that was really quick though, because then I did see the opportunity at Bark for design, and I was missing toy design. And at first I was skeptical. I researched them and I looked at their portfolio, or not their portfolio, but saw the toys on their site. And I don't know, I'm not really into their style, their look, but I'll chat with them. And I met with Dan Grossman, who was the director at the time, and that's where I learned that the toys that I wasn't really into were just more of they were sourcing toys from factories. They were focused on their direct. They have a subscription model. So for anyone not familiar with Bark, they are known for Bark Box, which is a subscription you can have where you get.
I'm a subscriber.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For sure.
So at the time, they were working on bringing design in-house to really start focusing on that part of their business. And so Dan was really leading that, defining process, defining design and humor. So anyways, just seeing his energy and excitement around this initiative to really establish design and aesthetic for Bark there, to be part of that team and learn more about like soft good design and stuff, I was like, I want to work with him, I want to work with the team. And so
that's awesome.
That was the start of the journey with Bark.
Wow, so you got in right at the beginning. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, when I joined, I think there's 3 or 4 other designers who maybe have been there for a year, 2 years max, I think. But they're just starting to figure out how to have more voice through toys rather than just like curation that they could do through factories.
And so you started did you start in a junior position or like a mid-level?
Mid-level, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then you rose up to director. So how long were you there?
5 years. So so first I focused on plush toys and did a lot for Bark Box, and then they were doing like 1 or 2 toys a month that were like rubber toys and nylon toys for they called Super Chewer, and that was to provide toy options for dogs with higher energy play styles or more aggressive play styles or destructive. And that was just something they were focused on the plush and the humor side of things. But then after I did that for I don't know, maybe 1.5 years, I was starting to miss more of the hard goods and more form, and I was just missing a little bit more of my ID side a little bit. So there was an opportunity with those designs they were doing to really elevate those and make them really beautiful and more engaging. Yeah. So I was starting to design for that for a little bit, and then that category started to grow a lot, and it wasn't fully its own brand, but it eventually grew to be its own subscription model, its own brand. We had teams starting to be built around it, and then I became the lead designer for Super Chewer, which then led to just a need for a team, and then it just grew with the brand really.
Oh my gosh.
And then I guess at one point I was managing 7 to 9 designers, fluctuated maybe over 2 years.
Wow.
Hired over COVID, and I had 1 designer start just pre-COVID, and then it was a lot.
Wow, there's a lot there.
Yeah, I know.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot of different aspects of it, but yeah.
Yeah, and now you're at Frog.
Now I'm at Frog, yeah. So that was the jump from Bark to Frog. By then it was so fun. I loved my team so much at Bark and what we're doing, but it was just starting to feel that need to just learn something new. I was so comfortable with just the routine of our process and the month-to-month thing. And I think with my career up until that point was so much toy design, of course, but then very much production development. And I just feel like more of the upfront design thinking, design research, thinking about the future and technologies. I just hadn't been exposed to it that much. And when the opportunity at Frog came up, I feel like that was a really good time for me to pivot, maybe take a step back and just start to understand myself as a designer in that way, and getting exposed to those different approaches, and also just different people too. They're super smart and coming from really incredible backgrounds. Yeah. So I've been learning a lot and just uncomfortable a lot in a good way, but it's been really fun to see how skills translate, or I'm reinterpreting things for design work.
Yeah. So cool. What a great career journey so far.
Yeah.
And more to come.
Yeah, more to come. Well, I have no idea. We'll see. It's like Frog to a place called Bark. I feel like people laugh so much at these company names.
But I feel like you have this thing where you're very confident in your capabilities. You might not know what's next, but the door's always open for opportunities. And I feel like that's the right attitude to have.
Yeah, it's good. Sometimes it's just a front. There definitely is the fake it till you make it. Or I have
So
to tell
true.
myself, I know Lindsay Maxwell at the recent talk she
Yeah.
did, I have to tell myself, like, you deserve to be here sometimes. Because
Yes.
definitely, at least my transition to Frog, I have a lot of confidence with leadership and toy design and production, manufacturing, all those things. But the things we do at Frog, and it's just, I did experience imposter syndrome switching over to just the level of like technique and just how much they put into design and research up front,
Yeah.
that I just didn't get I don't know what the right word is. Usually when you work in-house at companies, there's just not time or budget that's invested towards that. And when
Yeah.
you're somewhere at Frog, your clients are already coming with you knowing they want to invest in the time and
research.
focus for that upfront part. Yeah.
Right.
Which is what I wanted too. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like, man, this stuff is like going over my head. I just got to really learn about like direct air capture and sequestering all at once one day, or learn how to do the workflow of nurses and doctors. And every time you're working on a new project, you're thinking about their terminologies, their world, and that's something I've been loving a lot, is just getting
Yeah.
to meet new people and really understanding different point of views, because I
Yeah.
have worked so much in the toy space where you can have a lot of different users and stories within that, but just really stretching out to different fields and product industries has been really cool.
That's so cool. That reminds me, as you were talking about just the user journeys and whatnot, there was this project we had in sophomore year at Pratt where we had to choose someone that we knew, like a professional, and follow them for 2 days,
Oh,
and then
wow.
design something that they would need or that would elevate their work experience or life in some way, like while on the clock. And that's I feel like that was such a good project thinking back. It was really fun. I don't think I did a great job, but you know.
Yeah, I think it probably shows you how far you can go to really understand people,
Yes.
or what you should do, or it
Empathy.
kind of crosses over to maybe let's think about acting a little bit, how actors study method acting or just like impersonating, but it actually forces you to really get in that headspace, and then just being open-minded to people that are not you. And I think that's easy for people to just get trapped in, if this is my experience and this must mean it's everyone else's experience.
Right. I think that's one of the core things about empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what industrial designers excel at, is like empathy for the user.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely a big focus, but that's so cool. That's so cool. So how has like your design process shifted from place to place? Like you did some in toys, you did the cannabis stuff and the home goods, and then you went to dog toys and then Frog.
Right.
Do you find that the process shifts from place to place? Or I just have so many
Yeah, it
curiosities.
shifts. There's definitely a lot of parallels or ways it translates. Maybe like it shifts with starting point to end point. So when I was in-house at like Kids 2 or Bark, your starting point is you already know your parameters or ways of playing, pun intended, but with technology or functionality, price points, usually things start off with what is the story we're wanting to tell with our characters, with trends we're seeing, and what are the type of play features or interactions we're trying to encourage. And then, you're just thinking so much about the retail space and the end goal of production, of course, and because you have to get something out, you have to have these things. And so you already kind of know what you have to work within and what your end output is going to be, more or less, and then just going through the process that's already so established. Whereas at somewhere like Frog, the starting point can be so different and the needs are so different too. So it could be like, okay, we're developing this technology, here's what we know so far, but we also need to develop this sort of product around it. And then it's like going back and forth. With that, you might be doing user testing to understand how that technology or the way it's assembled could support the workflow or how it doesn't. Or maybe it's like we have this technology, but we don't know applications for it or what to do with it. And so we help investigate or research and develop some provocations or insights around that. And that's really exciting to do too. And where it really, wow, I get a day just to think about this type of stuff. Whereas like companies or in-house, it's just, you're just in go mode. And then, I guess that endpoint difference is that you're seeing things through all the way through production in-house, or I was involved with that at least. And then at Frog, that can also vary too. So you might just hand off your design language package or like your research or whatever that scope is. And then typically the manufacturing development is more of a handoff point, or we help partner.
Yeah.
So.
That's so cool. Did you find that there was a really big learning curve in learning, like bringing it through to production? There's so many technicalities, and like working with manufacturers, I feel like that's a scary point for designers.
Yeah, it's scary. I don't know if scary is the right word, but you just have to go through it. You have to see it. And I recently did a talk at SCAD actually, just sharing my experience with manufacturing. I was like, it can be so different for anywhere you are. I was like, I don't even know how to talk about this at first, but all I could do was just show photos of stuff and then just share stories about what the approach was. And it just is going to be different every time. Your factory partners are going to be different. But yeah, I think you just have to go through the motion, but then building up that experience just makes you that much more valuable.
Yeah.
And experienced, yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. And it would be really interesting if at Frog you carried most of your products, your projects through to that point, because I'm sure like each at a firm, everything's different, right? At Barks, it's like you're working with maybe the same factory or the same set of factories. But at Frog, if you were to carry it all the way through to production, it's like it could be really varied.
Yeah. And they might already have their own partners, the clients. So then we were meeting with them and understanding what conversations to have and how to set them up for, because we do know how to design for manufacturing. And so we know how to help make that handoff as seamless as possible. But what's cool with when I was at Bark is that because you're there, you're getting to dive so much deeper into processes and factories, because it's not just like you're there for one project and then you're out. It's the long-term goals and strategies. So I actually got to work closely with our director of sourcing, Stephanie Goransky, really closely, because Superture was growing so much and we had to really figure out partners that supported our design work compared to Plush factories. But I lost my train of thought. But but then you start to learn the nuances of factories, like their capabilities, their techniques, the different approaches. So for the amount of production we were doing, we were working with 3 to 4 different factory partners. So my team might develop a collection, and then knowing my experience with each factory, be like, okay, these designs should go here because I understand their overmolding techniques here that like avoids having to have a certain like gap required, or you just start to understand the different nuances, and then depending on the design intent, I already had a sense of what design should go where, because who executes different aspects. Or the rubbers might be slightly different, so I loved that I got to understand the relationships, the capabilities to that point to be able to just have a point of view on that.
That's so cool.
Yeah, things
that's
you don't
so
realize,
cool.
yeah.
I love that stuff. I geek out about that stuff. I'm just like, I want to learn it all. Like, I loved going to the materials room at Pratt, and just like they had this beautiful sample wall, and I used to just touch everything. Love a good sample wall. Switching gears a bit. So you not only have the talent experience of actually designing products, bringing it through, but you've had to learn a lot of management and leadership, like on the fly.
Yeah.
Like, how was that?
Yeah, definitely on the fly, but you start realizing how much, I guess maybe people could say this when they become parents, like they start to reflect on their own parents. And so it was a great, you take things from your past leaders of things you loved, things that didn't quite work for you, and thinking about why. So there's a lot of things, for example, Dan Grossman, his leadership was so much of just like everyone has great ideas, like everyone's valued no matter what level, like
I love that.
just really wanting to
Very
invite,
equitable.
And I loved that approach. And there's other managers that just their humor, just little things of how they're interacting or organizing the team or trying things out, and you're going to always be experimenting yourself too. But for me, I remember when I was hiring my first designers, I was pretty nervous because you don't know the type of parent you're going to be until you are one. I don't know what this is going to bring out in me.
And how do you like pick somebody if you don't have experience? Like, that is nerve-wracking too.
I got really lucky with Jake Brocious was my first designer, and we had a really fun story of how we met, of just I led a sketch workshop around toy design and concepting, because it's a little different from how you might traditionally learn in industrial design. But he stood out to me at that workshop, just his interest and passion. And then I wasn't even thinking about him as a candidate later until like we crossed paths at a conference we were speaking at. And I was like, I need to hire. I'm seeing his work now because of this conference we were both at, and he's great. And then I wanted to see if he was interested. And then, I think passion though is super important, and just how invested or excited they are to work where you are. Hard skills are important, but the soft skills are just how they're able to, interact with you, talk, share their ideas,
everything,
verbally or visually. Yeah, it's
communication. Like the things that are the hardest to gauge are the most important.
Yeah, and it's more about, can you just have a conversation with them, and then and so for him, it was just felt like we were already talking about the potential of Superture and ideas, and it felt like he got it too when I was sharing what I was envisioning, and it felt genuine. It wasn't just totally, very genuine. And then from after him, all the following designers were just same thing, passion, but then also you have to really be strategic on what are different types of personality types that can bring that really good variety, and skill sets, backgrounds, and we had such a range of designers from like accessories background to someone from Nike. She was this amazing like CAD builder of just different approaches that they really leaned on each other, and creating that need to lean on each other was actually really interesting because there was a skill share, but also making sure you're picking up on traits of them wanting to share with each other and not being like protective of themselves or their skills. And being okay with most of the designers. You're typically owning your design through, but also being open if someone were to pick up your design and like follow through, but then you can have a conversation throughout the process to make sure it's your original vision or collaborate in that. So,
did you have any external resources that helped shape your like leadership and management style? Or you learned on the fly?
Because learn on the fly, definitely mentors are good. There's definitely one point, I think it wasn't even a bad review or anything. We had a employee survey sort of thing, and there was like a comment if someone that it seemed like they were from my team, that they were not happy about something. And I just was so gutted. I was like, oh my gosh. And it wasn't even necessarily from me, but I was like, someone on my team's unhappy. And I feel like maybe I cared too much at some points, but I think that first time you get that, I was so crushed. And I remember reaching out to, I think I would reach out to Dan or even my dad, who is experienced with managing and leading too. I was like, I don't know how to feel or process this. But yeah, so having moments like that. I didn't do any official training outside of company. Here's a management online harassment training, like stuff like that, which is definitely very good. But
that's awesome though. I feel like mentors and advisors, I feel like the personal advocate too, like anyone or coach. Anyone that falls into those categories can just teach you a bunch.
And I think when else, Nick Kogan, who was my boss when I was directing, he also created such a great space for me to talk to, because he knew I was entering that position with it was just so nice to be able to just feel like I could be open with him with just how I was feeling about different aspects.
And I think too, I've had a lot of conversations with like my schoolmates, like people in the world, and they're now doing various different design roles, some UI UX of course, some just straight up ID, some running their own firms. There's this general like worry, I guess, that if you go into management and leadership, you're like stuck there forever. But what I find fascinating is that you were that at Bark, and then now you're like more of an individual contributor. I think it's a great example that you don't have to be stuck. So did you feel that though, where like people like wanting to put you in management and leadership forever? Did you feel that pull that?
Yeah, I didn't feel, I wouldn't say pull, but it was encouragement, because there's some designers, I think people will start to see you might naturally have those leadership characteristics, or just what you might just start naturally doing, just having a heart for community or relationships within your team. They do take note of that. Okay, we can see this path for you, and even if it's presented to you, you can say no. Actually, I want to keep focusing on this. And it's design managers, directors is different everywhere. So I've been in some companies where it is more management, numbers, things like that. And you just want to be aware of that. Whereas for me, at Bark, I got to define it for what I wanted, how involved or not involved I wanted to be with design, what kind of designing or being involved in design meant at that level. A more bigger picture, well, you can still let your team own the designs. But yeah, I think it might, when I went to Frog, they just really want to make sure how I felt about coming from a director role to then being more of an individual contributor. And I'm glad they were just really sensitive to just making sure I was okay with that. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, of course. I'd love to be heads down, and I loved being to lead, and I want to do that again someday too, or find other outlets for that. But there's still more in design I wanted to learn and explore, like myself with.
For sure. I think that's so cool though, because it can be really simple. If you just advocate for yourself and you say, you know you have the option to say, thanks for the opportunity, but I actually want to pursue this. A lot of people, I think, earlier in their careers, as they're just getting started, maybe 3 or 5 years in, sometimes still don't know that they have that choice. You have to just take the opportunity. And so I think that makes a really good point. It's just knowing your options, knowing what you want, and it's a two-way street.
Right, yeah.
Like, jobs are a two-way street. You're not just doing something for the company. What is the company doing for you?
And if you're curious, there's ways to see if you do that without committing to a role. So maybe you can ask to mentor someone, or maybe just manage a junior designer while you're still like principal or something. But yeah.
So cool. I love your career journey. It's so
everyone's
cool.
Just so unique now, especially these days. Just everyone hopping around, and like skills translate so much and differently. It's like easy to explore different areas.
Also, isn't it crazy that the new norm is to be at a job for 18 months?
I know. I'm even
It's a new
wondering, it's
norm.
like, what are resumes supposed to be now?
I know.
Like, do they still have to be one page? Because there are so many
Yeah.
that start to build up. And
It's so interesting. But then I'm like, I find myself very impressed when I see people stay at a company for a really long time. I'm like, they must be treating you. That's definitely a nod to the company.
right, or there's a newness to it, or just continuing to be more and more of an expert within the field. So
Yeah.
there's definitely pros and cons to both.
So it's such a fascinating world we live in.
Yeah.
Post-COVID, we just put us all in a blender and
Yeah.
just mix everything up. How is it going, like mixing up stage and size of a company? Because you've experienced a lot of variation and diversity in that too. Like you've done the small firm at Pollen, right?
Right, yeah.
I'm assuming your first job maybe was a larger company?
Yes, yeah.
And then Bark was smaller and then grew.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so what would you say are like the major differences? Or I feel like people don't put that into consideration when they're looking for a job sometimes, like how that will affect the workload and like the work type and everything.
Yeah. Typically when it's smaller, so like Pollen or earlier years of Bark, you have to take more initiative, I think, or even at Frog too. Or initiative's good anywhere, but sometimes you really have to just be like, or know that you can take the initiative, because sometimes just people like need someone to do it, or you can see that there's more spaces to find, and just being flexible with wearing different hats, just being open-minded in that way. Whereas larger companies, you're there for a specific reason, and you already have these other like roles covered, which you should still build relationships with and learn about, but it's just this is your focus. But even as a Bark, I think or if you're somewhere like a startup or something, just really finding how you can run with things, that's typically very encouraged. And I think that's what helped with my growth at Bark, is that they saw some of the initiative or the excitement and the push, like Superchewer, that they just let me run with it.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different considerations. What would you say was like the most shocking thing you learned outside of school that you needed to be an industrial designer in the professional world, but that you didn't learn at school?
I think something that's shocking is just like how fast like softwares and technology is changing, and it's exponential. It's just, man, like really learning how to expose yourself to these new things, how to understand it, how you want to bring it into your own process or not. It's just so shocking. And at SCAD, I was exposed to that a little bit, where they were just like, go do a presentation in InDesign, where I haven't even learned InDesign yet. So I'm like, okay, so that's typically what especially at Frog, I feel like it's going to try so many new things. Okay, let's just do this with a completely new process or software, especially AI and all the plugins and stuff. You're learning. There's just so many new tools that we can experiment with. Whereas I think when we were in school, it's just, you got these 3 program options and Keyshot. And
oh my God, Keyshot.
I'm saying even 3D printing. You only have one machine, 2 machines, and these are the capabilities of 3D printing right now. But now, so many choices, so many materials.
Overwhelming.
Yeah, so just keeping up with that. And then I think we touched on it a little bit too, just the life aspect of just how you personally process things around design that are happening at where you're working, which is like team relationships and bosses, and just learning about yourself in different ways. But you just have to get out there and then be very self-aware.
Trial by fire.
Yeah. Just, you learn you're constantly learning about yourself, and you're also changing too. So
yeah, I feel like that's one skill of IG people, is like I hear a lot about different schools and different ways that we were educated, and it was a lot of just go do this, just throw yourself in the pool in the deep end and hope that you can swim, like what you just said about make your entire presentation on InDesign when you didn't know InDesign prior. Like, it's so common. So I feel like trial by fire is just our style.
yeah Back then, now you got like YouTube, you got all these Instagram, you got all these channels to learn these things.
We didn't before. You're right.
Yeah, there's not. That's also something that's evolved as a school. I think that's when Instagram was starting, or there's such a presence, and it's really great to see that community and sharing on platforms like Instagram. That was like just seeing more, getting more exposure to different techniques. Yeah,
and then now we have AI.
Yeah,
which is prompts can be so difficult like to get, because you don't know the level of detail, but I find the conversation around like this entire industry, even like the additive manufacturing industry, how AI is going to affect it, super interesting. Are you starting to like use it as a tool. It feels like back in the day when the internet was new and people had to get used to the internet. It feels like now we have to get used to AI.
Yeah, we definitely, I think you dabble. You always have your backup plan, right? You're not like relying on it. At least right now, it's just a lot of experimenting. A lot of experimenting. How do you feel about it personally and emotionally, but also what are expectations of your organization or clients you're working with? And it's become such I think companies now are feeling like there's an expectation to utilize AI. It's good as they should be seeing how that could help them, but even to a point of just like making it part of their marketing was so interesting to observe. But yeah, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent. But yeah, we are constantly just challenging how AI can help at different parts of the process and then different ways to use it within those. There's so many tools, we're just constantly playing around with it and learning, and which has been fun because it changes things up and makes you think about things differently.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah.
And it's evolving pretty quickly, too.
Yeah. Before, I think still now people describe it as an intern, right? You still can do things, but you still having to do a lot. But maybe it's starting to, maybe soon AI is going to be promoted to mid-level. Okay.
Yeah. Slightly scary.
Yeah, still processing, still observing and seeing other people using it and talking about it.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. I had a random question as we were talking about like softwares and tools. Like, what are your go-to like digital tools and softwares? And then, because there's so many. I'm just curious myself.
There's some, and I know there's some that I know. Like I know ones I want to learn. Like MAKE.LAB is it's kind of similar to ZBrush, but just like sculpting and organic modeling, or a lot of that push-pull sort of thing. Blender is still one that is embarrassingly still on my to-do list to learn. But as far as ones I go to, I do a lot of digital sketching in Procreate. I also really love Sketchbook Pro. But it's been interesting too, that transfer of sketching on iPads versus Cintiqs in that time.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So, yeah, it's like even how that's
giant
changed.
Cintiqs.
Yeah, now people try to sell their Cintiqs and no one wants them.
Yeah.
But and then I do a lot of SolidWorks. I do a lot of Fusion and then Keyshot for rendering. Earlier on, I did a lot of Alias for modeling, and that was really good for more the organic shapes you're doing in toy design. Everything starts with the sphere, and you're just shaping that out because you want that more soft, inflated look for a lot of the forms. So we do that. I think Fusion's really exciting. Not that I'm trying to sponsor any programs, but they've explored kind of bringing those different environments or building approaches into one space. Yeah, being able to do more of that organic surface modeling sort of thing, and then bring that into solid-based modeling, and then just thinking about how they're thinking about interface design and stuff like that. But
I dabbled in Fusion 360. Every now I don't do much modeling in my job, but I still get I get these cravings to do things, either work with my hands or create something. And so sometimes I'll just take a winter break or something, and I'll just dive in and learn all the tutorials, have my double screen and everything.
Oh, that's great.
Just so I stay fresh. Fusion was one I picked up maybe 5 to 10 years ago. I have no idea.
It's
but
probably
a while
so
ago.
different now.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I remember the surface modeling was pretty cool. Was a pretty cool feature.
Yeah, and it's interesting too with softwares that you're also now it'd be like cloud-based software platforms versus like SolidWorks is still very much you have to have your PC or some sort of partition set up. Or, so those are also the other factors you have to consider too.
So interesting. Yeah, it's always an interesting question I find myself asking a lot. It's software developers asking, what's your tech stack? What are your tools?
Yeah, well, it's also, I guess that's another aspect talking about when I became director is because that, I guess, industrial design within BARC was still, being defined and new. It was I was also having to make decisions on what softwares we're working on, and you're also thinking about
a big one.
Yeah, but you also think about what the cost is, and so actually we used Fusion there because of the flexibility of their subscription model, just costing being cloud based, but you can also do file sharing. So also having to think about that for a company, so that might be something you're involved with.
Yeah, I definitely factor that in for sure. I have to weigh the pros and the cons, and everyone learns on different programs, so it's
right, and how much do you want to accommodate? That was something too with everyone's I do SolidWorks, so I do Rhino, and so also I really appreciate when places offer as much as they can for you to work how you work best, but then it's actually maybe you can try to figure out the software, and I don't think that's not unfair to ask, but you also want to try to support what people work best in.
For sure. This has been awesome. What would you say are you can frame this question in a few different ways. What are 3 things you'd tell your younger self or tell a budding designer, or main takeaways from this conversation?
I think typically what I say, continue to follow passions and lean into curiosities, which sounds so cliche. Those figure out how to show those through your design work, because those are the unique things that people are looking forward to bring you on, which I feel like is maybe part of why I was brought on to Frog, from my unique background and just embracing that. But then also it just gives you exposure to a lot of different things that you can pull into something you're working on. Oh, I'm really into, I play piano. That could be I have a unique relationship with that sort of product that maybe I'll start designing pianos, and then, which sounds like, yeah, pianos, but thinking about how you can pull that into what you're working on.
Yeah.
And then also just encourage people to be really open with sharing about their experiences and being, I love when, talking about Lindsay's talk recently, just the vulnerability and just really opening up, and that builds that connection and leads to new, oh, you shared you're interested in this, I actually have this thing for you, or just
putting it out there.
Yeah, talk about what you need or what you want instead of just putting up too much of a front, because then it just makes you more memorable, and then people will be like, oh, actually they mentioned they wanted to do this, but
guest appearance. He's so sweet.
Yeah. And then I think maybe the last, we were talking a lot about keeping up with technology, is like maybe giving yourself the space and time to learn and think about how you're feeling about these new things.
And get a dog for inner peace and joy. Wow. He's so sweet. He just wants to be the center of attention. Thanks so much for joining on this snowy Saturday weekend. Great light outside because snow, reflective. But anyway, thanks for joining me. And thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe to Talking Design and Engineering on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, or follow MAKE.LAB on social media for the latest in on-demand 3D printing services.